Ever used a product and wonder how in the world did this ever come about? What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Fervent 4. Did you know that only 4% of businesses ever cross the annual $1 million revenue mark? Hello, I'm Zach Miller, author of Anomaly. And with me today, I have my co-host, Tim Ryan, lead man at startwheel.org. Thank you so much for joining us. The Fervent 4 is a weekly show every Thursday at 11 a.m. dedicated to sharing insights into growing a world-class business no matter the climate. One day, Steve Waddell had a business idea. This idea was unlike others he'd had in the past because he couldn't stop thinking about it. Today, that idea is Nasoni, the world's first fountain faucet. Steve Waddell and Dave Scouler, welcome to the Fervent 4. How's it going, gentlemen?
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
It is wonderful. Dave, I think the first question is going to be for you because a special guest just came into the screen. What dog is that? You're one of four, you said?
Yeah, we have 4 dogs. 3 of them are rescue dogs, and that one is the smallest but the sauciest. So he thinks he casts a much larger shadow than he actually does. But he's just doing his job, and if they get noisy, I'll mute while they do that. So, but thanks for asking. Yeah, our newest one is a puppy, is a Great Dane puppy. He's 8 months old and he's 115 pounds already.
Steve, are you a dog guy?
You may see him.
Yeah. In fact, my wife and I rescue German Shepherds. Most of them have come from Southeast German Shepherd Rescue.
Where's that?
Physically, they're probably virtual. And so they have a website, they have a Facebook page. And like, for example, one of our German Shepherds was abandoned in Williamsburg. And so we picked him up. That was Thor. And then Remy was abandoned in North Carolina. He had heartworms and somebody didn't want to pay to have him treated. So they got him and they treated him. And then we rescued him. I went down and got him out of North Carolina. And our latest dog is Rose. And they belong to a couple in Oregon who were moving to Florida and they couldn't take her, going to a retirement home, couldn't take her with them. And they were going to put her like in a shelter or something like that. I met them on Facebook. I drove to Nashville and they drove to Nashville and we did the exchange and I brought her home the next day.
I'm always interested in learning about parallels between things that seem to have nothing to do with business and then something else, right? So like fitness and business, cooking and business and things like that. Yeah. I'm interested in how, Steve, by rescuing these German Shepherds, have you found any parallels there between the rescue of adopting a dog and helping those puppies out and business?
Well, I guess one thing is they're a stress relief. You have stresses sometimes during the day. And to get home and see the dogs, no matter what happened during that day, when you get home, they're going to be excited to see you. They're jumping up and down and just always there for you, So, yeah, that's the biggest tie-in, I think I'd say. Mm-hmm. People that have dogs know what I mean by stress relief a dog,
Yeah.
And
if I can add to that or complement that, I mean, I've gotten to know Steve over the last couple of years, and one thing that I think is a crossover between, rescuing animals that need, a good home is, the character of how to care for something that needs it. And if it's a business idea that needs care, Steve is always there, always. And I've seen him and I've met his dogs and they're wonderful dogs, but, they take a fair amount of energy and bandwidth. And so, as I've interacted with a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of business people, character is emerging for me as a very important characteristic for how you build a team, how you advance your idea, how you garner resources and enthusiasm for what you're doing. So it's just, most people think, well, he's the smartest guy in the room, right? And he's pulling this idea together. Well, most of those guys don't make it, in my experience. Then the guys that make it are able to create an environment that people want to participate in, and that gets to character and curiosity and courage, even a little craziness. But, there's just some things that I think in the introduction here, I think around, well, who is this guy? Steve. And I think I would share from my vantage point, it's the person that is the foundation for the development of the idea.
Dave, I'll have to pay you later for those kind words.
Tim and I have known each other for a long time. We've been doing this show for about 6 or 7 months now.
Mm-hmm.
And that word care has not come up at all. And it's really interesting, though, because as soon as you said it, though, it was like, you know what? A lot of people don't care about even just at its simplest point, their business.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's
right.
That was such an interesting word.
Yeah.
Well, we can extend that to customers as well.
Sure.
We've implemented what we call a happiness guarantee. So if you get the faucet and let's say within the first 30 days, you don't like it, have a problem with it, whatever, we'll do what it takes to make it right, or we'll replace it or refund your money, whatever it takes. And then after 30 days, we have our limited lifetime guarantee. So it's all, we care about our customers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's a two-way street.
Yeah.
The only thing that you really hear from people is that they complain that no one cares about them. However, the business owner may not have done anything to care about the customers first. And I mean, that is a two-way street. No one's going to care about you until you care about them first. And so that's nice to hear if you have that figured out. And the same holds true with dogs as well.
Thank you. And I'll also share that we also care about the planet. And because we just announced last week on Imagine a Day Without Water, that our new mission, our bold new mission that we've just announced, is to save over 1 billion gallons of water annually and make people's lives easier in the process by 2030. So that's our longer mission goal now.
Something that I don't think a lot of people think about from a water perspective, and we're going to and be thinking the next question I'm going to have for you after this is around just the backstory of Nasoni and what it is and things like that. But single-use water products and single-use products in general, it's like a water ball and stuff like that. So there was a documentary that I watched about a year ago called The Game Changers, and its whole thing is basically how to become a fit athlete, a super athlete by being vegan. But in it, there was a statistic that basically said something like, for every pound of meat that you eat, it's like 10,000 gallons of water to produce that piece of meat. Now, look, I probably butchered that stat, but the fact that we consume so much water, even though we're only consuming so little water, it's pretty mind blowing to think about that, and it's something that I've been trying to over the last year really try to be cognizant of, and I appreciate you guys trying to do that.
Well, let me share with you and your listeners. 3%, only 3% of the water on Earth is available as fresh water. The rest is salt water.
Wow.
And out of that, 2% is frozen. So that means 1% is left for our use. That's really hard to believe. And then what we've done is we've created a water saving calculator on our website. And what it shows you is when you install our fountain faucet, and if you use it up to 6 minutes a day, in place of where you would use a normal faucet, it'll show you how many gallons of water you'll save annually. And that's what a lot of other companies will do. But we took it one step further. If you look at your water bill, let's say right here in Suffolk, right, there are 3 different components. You pay a water fee for the water usage. You also pay a fee for wastewater treatment, and then you pay a sewer fee. So we also calculate all 3 of those fees, and then at an annual level. So now you can see what your payback period for changing out to a fountain faucet. And in many cases, it's just only 2 to 3 years. And the third thing is we give you the amount of greenhouse gas that's saved because of the lack of the production of those gallons of water, which is incredible.
And the treatment
for two people in Suffolk using the fountain faucet 6 minutes a day in place of the others will have about $180 saved annually, and they'll save over 10,000 pounds of greenhouse gas.
Interesting. Is there any tax incentives for the green effort that's taking place? I mean, I know there's tax advantages for going solar. Is there anything for water conservation?
So we're looking into that, and that's a great question. And it also leads to, we're looking for our next round of investment. And one of the things that I've told the team is I want our next investor to be in the green space. And because we want somebody that can bring us to the table all the knowledge and connections in that industry. So we've started that hunt, and we've got a guy that we're working with now named Christian Siebens. And Christian is talking to 2 different investors. We'll hear from him either today or tomorrow, but he has a lot of knowledge and experience in that space. And I'll let Dave elaborate just a little bit on Christian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's, you come across, like Steve was talking about earlier, you come across, people that sort of get captivated by what you're doing, and they can see the purpose of it, and they can get behind it, and then they can say, well, how can I help that? So Christian is a very successful entrepreneur, and he has, a number of connections into areas and businesses that he has a passion to help grow. So what does that mean? For him, bringing ideas, bringing products that are very much on theme in terms of, what are today's and tomorrow's consumers and homeowners, what are they going to be really looking for? And so he has a business that involves energy and energy conservation within homes, and that's taken him to talk to the more sophisticated, I would say, builders who are, serving that market. And as we got to know him, he said, well, the water conservation is going to be a huge issue, and so he really got behind it. And he's now talking to the relationships that he has that will inevitably help us in the B2B side to, get our product known and used and respected and valued, in the commercial space. And he's going to San Juan in a couple of weeks, and he has some developers down there that he's anxious to showcase the product for. And then his partner, who's in Texas, has connections with a lot of builders out of there. So, that's an of a guy, and he might be part of the investment group that we're trying to put together. So these guys come along, these wonderful guys come along and get engaged in what we're trying to do, and then know us. And then there's a certain amount of spirit there that carries us forward. And so we'll have a call with him tomorrow, and we're excited to kind of hear what he has to say. But one other thing I would just add, this is a personal experience. I've had, Missoni faucets in my home now for several months, and I just love them for sure. I don't, it's a genius invention for sure.
I would hope so at this point.
No, but the thing that surprised me, this sort of unintended positive, circumstance or benefit is my wife said to me the other day, she said, Dave, and we leave ours in fountain mode because that's all we really need. So, but what that's done, mindset wise, my wife said to me, you know what, this has made me really sensitive to how much water I use in the kitchen and in the shower, and just an overall awareness of, this is something very special, and she's cheering us on for people to get, for the products to get known and for us to be successful. But she said, for me personally, this is the impact it's had. I love using it, of course, but it's also, it's impacted the way I enter each day around water. Said, wow.
So Zach, really quickly, when I first did this, it was all about, I got tired of sticking my head under the faucet to rinse after I brushed, and I said I was going to fix it. And along the way, I've learned all these new uses. Dave gave me one that I had never heard of. So Dave, come on and share it.
Yeah, well, I don't know. This might be too much information.
No, it's good. It's good. It's okay.
I'm an older guy, right? I'm an older guy, 68 years old. And so it's not uncommon for me in the middle of the night to need to, go to the restroom. And, we've got the dogs and my wife is there. And so I've learned what I call stealth mode. So I will slide out, no lights on. I'll go into the bathroom, right? Very quietly. I'll go into the bathroom, do my business, and then on the way back, I'll get a drink out of the fountain. And there's no noise, no lights, and I don't disturb anyone.
You have to tell them you left it in fountain mode.
Yeah, no, I leave it. We leave it in fountain mode. So I know right where it is. I know where the stream's going to be, and it's an enhancement to my. Otherwise, I hate getting up in the middle of the night. But anyway, I'm sorry. It's a little personal, but it is real.
Hey, nothing like a little chug of the water in the middle of the night. Love it.
Exactly.
So, Steve, tell me, I've heard this pitch from you many, many times, but for the people who have never heard it before, how did Missoni kind of come about, and tell me what it is?
Sure, happy to. So my career background is 25 years building nuclear-powered aircraft carriers and submarines at Newport News Shipbuilding, starting out as an apprentice where I worked on the waterfront with my hands and migrated all the way to engineering and spent many years in engineering work, designing and solving a lot of problems on carrier programs and others that other people couldn't see. I really kind of became known for process improvement. And, when you can't turn that off when you go home. And, I spent the next 11 years helping my wife's company, Reed Integration, and grow that. But, when I look back at my life, I thought, is this really the legacy I want to leave? That I work for the shipyard and I work for her company? Or is there something bigger, something better I'm destined to do before I'm done, And one day it dawned on me, my wife and I both love Italy. She would like to try the wine there. I'd like to try the pizza. And there's these culinary tours you can take. We were looking at some of those, and I ran across a video of a little girl drinking from what's called a Nasoni in Italy. And what happens is these Nasoni look like a fire hydrant, and they take water. Back in 1874, they were first installed, but they take water from the Apennine Mountains. It flows through the Roman aqueducts up through the Nasoni and out the side on a little tube that hangs down kind of like a big nose. That's why they called it Nasoni. And the water that comes out the bottom, dogs will drink out of and so forth. And you plug the bottom with your hand, just put your hand over it, and it pops out the top like a water fountain. And it's like, wow, genius. Why don't we have this in the bathroom? I always hated sticking my head under the faucet. I don't want to use a glass that gets dirty because of the aerosol effect too. And I didn't find, there wasn't a great solution. And I kept thinking, man, there's got to be a better way. And when I saw that, I said, voila, that's when the moment of inspiration fired inside me, right? I said, let's do this. So I created a prototype just out of parts from Home Depot. I went and bought a fiberglass sink. I bought a faucet and a shutoff valve that I put in place of the aerator, hooked it up to a garden hose, and drilled a hole in the top of the apex of the neck of the faucet. And when I turned it on and I turned the shutoff valve on, it came out of the top just like I expected. And I really liked it, and I thought it was cool, and I showed it to my stepfather at the time, who was 80 years old. And he looked at me and he laughed. He goes, "The heck are you going to do with that?" And I said, well, when you're in the bathroom to rinse, you either got to cup your hands, tilt your head, or use a cup that gets dirty, right? And he goes, "No." I said, "No? What do you mean no? What do you do?" He goes, "Oh, hell, I just take my teeth out and I throw them in a cup." But I took that as a challenge, to prove that I could actually take this to market and make it happen. And that's pretty much the story of how we got started.
How long ago was that, Steve?
That was in 2014. The actual day that I made the prototype was New Year's Day, because we were off of work at Newport News Shipbuilding that day. And so I used that day. It was a nice day. The weather was nice. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and try this. You watch Shark Tank, right? And you get inspired when you see all the people going on the show. And that fired inside me and said, man, you know what? All the stuff you've done at the shipyard for the Navy and everybody else, do something for yourself. You can do it at home. Let's try it, right? And that's what happened.
And you've been on the road show, so to speak, ever since then. What's been the most memorable event or pitch experience that you've had in the last 6 years?
Well, that because you've seen me in some of these competitions locally. But what happens is when you're not sure of the idea yet, when you think you have a great idea, but you don't have the funding, let's say, you're bootstrapping everything you can with the money you have in your pocket for it. You decide, okay, you know what? Maybe I can win some of these startup competitions, And one of the first ones I won was the Get Started Hampton Roads in 2015, sponsored by Cox Media and Inc. magazine. There were 5 contestants. They down selected to 5. And I actually won not only the judge's favorite for $10,000 in cash and prizes, I also won the audience favorite for a $250 American Express gift card. The cool thing about that was it let me take that next big step. And, I read every inventor handbook you could find. One of them was the Mom Inventor's Handbook, from Tamara Monosoff. And I'm like, mom inventor. I'm not a mom inventor, but you know what? I'm going to read everything I can to learn everything I could to try to be successful. And in there, she had referenced a guy in Maine that did prototypes. So I reached out to him and I used that winnings up from that show to build the first prototype. And then I took that and there was a show called Steve Harvey's Thunderdome that was happening at the time. And I made a video again in the driveway of my yard and had the faucet on. I demonstrated it, and I submitted the video. And lo and behold, man, I was accepted to get on Thunderdome. That was so cool because I fly out to California. They paid the way. And the great thing, they put me in a hotel, and I went a couple days early so that I could practice in my hotel room. And anyway, you get on stage, and I'm on stage with Steve Harvey, and I love Steve Harvey. What an awesome guy, right? And you got another entrepreneur. It's two I guess podiums rather. And our products are there on the podium, and Steve Harvey's in the middle. And he goes over to the other guy first. That guy gives his pitch. He gets done. He comes over to me. I give my pitch. And then we both go to the center, and the audience in the meantime has to vote, right, what they're waiting on. And so while they're doing that, he's just standing there. The other inventor's just standing there. I look around. I see them all kind of looking at us. So I start, there's music playing. So I start dancing around, and I'm waving my arms up to pump the audience up, and they're reacting to me, right? So they're having so much fun with it. I think that's part of the reason I won, right? And the next thing happens is when they're done voting, Steve Harvey, the dollar sign flashes up. $5,000, $10,000, $2,000, $15,000. And what happens is you can push a button and cash out if you think you lost, and take that money, and no questions asked, you're done, So even if it's over and you won, you don't get that. You get what you pushed the button for. So I was acting like I was going to push the button. And as I did that, there was two little old ladies in the audience, and they're yelling at me going, "Don't you do it. Don't you do it." So funny thing was, right, my memorable moment was when I didn't hit the button, when I ended up winning and they said that, I ran to the audience because it's in a big circle, right, like stadium style.
Right.
And I ran to the audience, and I'm slapping every one of them on the first row 5 all the way around the entire thing because I was so excited. And I get back up to Steve, and I realized the two little old ladies that yelled at me, I missed them. So I ran back down to them, and I hit them too. And I ran back up to Steve and said, "Hey, man, I'm really sorry to make you late." He goes, "Man, you had to do what you had to do when you just won $50,000.
I've always wondered if I was in a situation like that, whether it be like a Deal or No Deal or the Thunderdome or something like that, or Supermarket Sweep or something like that. No, that's making a comeback tour. Like, when do you decide that? Like, when do you contemplate really that you might actually leave in that situation? Because I think a lot of people, I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, so I was watching Supermarket Sweep the other day, and I guess they had just won $50,000 and they had a chance to win $100,000. And so when you sit there and you go, okay, $50,000, it's great. Do you go for the 100? In this case, these people did. When you were seeing the 2, the 5, the 10, were you ever really thinking about getting up and leaving, or were you like, screw it, I'm going for the 50?
I was confident in my presentation. I was confident I had won the audience. I really felt good about it. And the other side to that is when you're an entrepreneur, you're all about
spend that money on dancing lessons is what they were hoping.
But when you're an entrepreneur, you're all about taking risks, right? That's
right.
What we thrive on. So yeah, I said I'm going to take the risk and go that I won, and I did.
So what was the other person pitching?
Yeah,
he had actually a nasal mask that he had already designed, packaged, and everything that would eliminate the need for using Dristan and stuff like that. That was healthier. It was a heated mask that you put on. And he was a lot further in development. He was ready to roll for putting it in stores.
But he was no Steve Waddell. So when you get an email comes across into your inbox, or you get a message from someone and it says, "Hey, opportunity available," whether it be for a Thunderdome, like a Start Peninsula weekend, or something else like the Get Started Hampton Roads event, you're just one kind of guy that always just says, "I'm going to be there," or how do you kind of sift through and recognize whether or not something is good enough for you?
You just evaluate the situation, but I always look at them as opportunity because you learn so much in these things too. I spoke at 1 Million Cups a few years back when it was in Virginia Beach, and as I spoke, one of the ladies raised her hand in the audience and she said, "I don't like my tap water where I live. Can you put a filter in it?" Right? And I looked at it and at the faucet, and I said, "There's no way to put it internal to the faucet. It would be so small you change it out every week." So that came up with the idea of let's make an under sink water filter, which you can actually see right here, and have it available. So now people can have clean filtered water in their bathroom because we are creating the need to drink in the bathroom, right? So we want clean water. But if I hadn't have participated in that event, she wouldn't have triggered that idea. So, you use it as a couple things. One, you can learn from people that are there. And two, it also helps to validate your idea. When you go out and win these competitions, you don't just, win just because of you. In some cases you might, but if you win more than one, man, sooner or later, somebody's going to say, yeah, that's a good idea. It's kind of validating what you're doing.
Yeah, I always look at it as an opportunity for free marketing as well. And most people will just be like, I don't want to go to that event. And so I appreciate that. And so how did you and David meet?
Oh, that's a great story. It's kind of long though. Can I get into it?
Yeah, the 2-minute version if you want.
All right. So as you know, I enter these competitions. Well, one came through about a TV show that was called Entrepreneur Elevator Pitch. And you fly out on your own nickel to California. So this was after Steve Harvey. This is my second trip to California. You get on the elevator, you got 60 seconds to give the pitch. And the judges at the top, if they like it, they give you thumbs up and they open the doors and let you finish your pitch. If they don't like it, they give you a thumbs down. And so I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to present this to make sure I win? So I thought, okay, it's a show. Let me create some intrigue. So I had all my faucets on shelves and they were all covered up. It was a rolling shelf on the elevator. And I had one in my hand in a bag. And I did not show them, the judges, the faucet. And I told them, we reinvented the faucet. It's awesome. It's patented. We just won the Best of KBiz People's Choice Award the month prior. And we're at the end zone. We're ready to cross the goal line. And with your help, we'll get there. Well, next thing you know, my elevator's going back down. I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't even get the door open to go finish my pitch. What happened, right? And, you fly home and you're feeling really dejected and you think, why did God put this obstacle in my life? Why did it happen? Why did I spend $2,000 that I don't have enough of, right, for this thing, right? Well, sometimes stuff like that happens in your life for a reason you don't realize it, that the reason hadn't come known yet. Because what happened was 2 weeks later, that show aired on YouTube. And there's a lady from the Richmond District SBA named Marcy Posey. My wife's company's Reed Integration, and she and I had worked with Marcy back in 2015 for a bit. So Marcy knew me. She happened to see that show. And she called a friend of hers named Ben. Now, her and Ben rode the school bus together 45 years ago. Her mom drove it. And she goes, Ben, you got to meet Steve Waddell. So she gave Ben my contact info. And Ben calls me up and says, Ben, hey, Steve, I hear you got this great product. Tell me about it. So I tell him, and he goes, would you like an introduction to my investor partner in Minnesota? I said, absolutely. So the week later, I have this call, and it's with Dave and the investors from Minnesota. Dave was working with them at the time. And the call went great. And they said, you know what, if we're going to go any further, we think you need to come to Minnesota. So that early August of 2018, I flew to Minnesota and at the Mall of America, which is a cool place. And I stayed at the JW Marriott so I could find the general manager and show him our faucets and do a little marketing while I was there. And then we met the investor. I met Dave, and happened to be Dave's birthday. They had a little birthday cake going for him. And we just had a great time. And within the next 3 months, by December of that year, they made a major investment in Nasoni for 25% of the company. And from there, all of last year, we went to bringing the product to market, which was great. Oh, and by the way, Dave wrapped up his work with them probably around March or April of last year. And then I reached out to Dave and said, hey, man, I'd like to come to work with Nasoni. And that's how we're here today.
Yeah.
Got it. Dave, is that the way it went down? Or
Yeah, it was. And some of the fun of it is, I mean, you know Steve as a character and his character. And we're up there. We're in my conference room. I have a small advisory business, sort of a niche at that time. Ron and his wife, high net worth individuals that had most of their wealth concentrated in Apple stock. And the goal was to create a small family office and diversify their wealth across a number of investments, early stage, cool stuff. And so Ron is here, and Steve has the mock-up faucet. We go out to the patio in my office, we hook it up, we turn it on, and we flick the switch, and out comes the stream from the fountain. And Ron was blown away. And ever since then, he's always said, you just have to experience this to see how cool it is. But it was at that time that I knew that here's a serious, successful business person who immediately got it and wanted it. And then the path to go from there, all of the process of, going through all the paperwork that's involved, it's a long and involved process. But Ron was so excited about this that he just accelerated it. He stayed with it, and he's on the board, of course, and
And he's got it installed in his house.
yeah, he got them installed in his house, and so yeah, so I think that whole early on in introduction, as Steve says, people come into your lives for reasons that you don't really understand at the time, and as you get to see who they are and what they're trying to do, it's either really captivating or it isn't, and in this case, both Steve and Becky. And the invention and Ron's excitement was like, okay, this is a kind of a perfect combination here. And so I finished the work with Ron and his wife, and he's got 7 companies now that he's all running. And, so then, as Steve said, I had some time on my hands, and he said, Dave, me, the product, what I'm trying to do. You got some good experience. Why don't you come on over? And so it was a kind of that offer I couldn't refuse.
So
I could refuse it. I didn't want to refuse it.
Well, I think that there's probably people watching that don't want to refuse it either. Where can people buy the product now?
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple locations. One is nasoni.com, NASONI, just like it says. Let's see if you can read. Oops, I'll turn the wrong way. It says on my shirt, nasoni.com.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing is, you can go on Amazon. So we joined when COVID hit. Our go-to-market strategy had been to use commission-based sales reps, manufacturer reps. We have Delco Sales in California, Champions Marketing in Florida, Champions Marketing in Texas, Ben Franklin in Florida, Virginia Maryland Associates in Virginia. But because of COVID, we sent them pallets of faucets and filters back in January, February timeframe. COVID then hits, and they can't meet with anybody. So probably around May, we got together with the board and we said, what are we going to do? What's our new strategy? Let's add e-commerce channels. And we learned that over 60% of product searches are now done on Amazon instead of Google. So it says, okay, you got to be on Amazon. So I researched Amazon before I jumped in. I always like to try to do my homework. And I learned of a program called Amazon Launchpad. Now, Amazon Launchpad is about, offering new products to the market and offering benefits to those startups that are trying to do this. So for example, if you understand Amazon's product page, there's a thing called enhanced brand content, which is where you get to add more pictures and stuff like that of the product. Well, with Launchpad, you get what's called premium enhanced brand content. So I can add video and all kinds of stuff like that. If you go to amazon.com/Nasoni, you come to our store on Amazon. It's really cool. Click on one of the products there, take you to the product page. Look at the video we have on there. There's just everything. So they're really cool product pages that, again, I didn't know any of this was possible. I'd shopped on Amazon for many, many years, but never knew we could put this much detail on our product pages. So that's the 2 places there, Nasoni.com and Amazon right now, and then the manufacturer reps.
One thing that I'm curious about is how simple is the installation. If someone was to buy it on Amazon, they get it delivered. Is this something that they need a plumber to install, or is this something that they can do on their own?
Great question. So I would say the center set faucet, which is this one here, and it sits on a common base, right? The 2 handles and the neck all sit together on that base. That is very simple to install. And pretty much anybody can do it. We actually have installation videos on Amazon and on our website that walk you through how to install all of our faucets and our filters. There is another faucet called a widespread. It has no common base. All 3 of these are separate, and they are in separate holes. And that's a little more complex. We recommend a plumber for that. And then the water filter, it takes less than 10 minutes to install. All you do is unscrew the line from the cold water side, and then it gets screwed in on one side. You take the other hose that we provide, and you unscrew that to the faucet, and you're done. And it's real simple to unscrew. There's right here is a separation line. So like your filter that goes in the refrigerator, and you know how you twist lock it in? That's all this does. It's simple twist lock. So to change it out takes like less than 30 seconds.
Wow. How often do you have to change it?
I think that's a really good question. And I have 2 in my home right now. I installed one myself. I'm not very handy.
You look handy.
And my son, who's 22, he installed a really cool one in his little basement bathroom. He loves it. And so, and we didn't, we watched the videos and we got the tools that we needed and we worked our way through it. And first time, boom, worked like a charm. So I would say if somebody like me or my son can do it, and we have, to Steve's point, we have the center set one, which is the easiest one. But
this is the widespread, guys, by the way. And this is what it looks like with no finish. So this is the solid brass that's underneath. When you think about, my background in building the best ships in the world, nuclear-powered aircraft carriers and submarines, I decided, let's figure out what it takes to make the best faucet in the world. And when you do, you learn that the best material is brass, lead-free brass, because it's easiest to work with. The other material choice is stainless steel. That's a premium, but that's harder to work with. And then there are two other components. One is the valves. If they leak, the faucet's no good. So we use ceramic disc valves, which are the best. They're made in Spain. And the finish has to look good and maintain itself over time. The best finish you can get today is called physical vapor deposition, or PVD. And we use a PVD finish on all of our faucets.
Yeah, I mean, you eat with your eyes, right? So I mean, the same thing goes there. If it's ugly but practical, people probably won't use it.
Yeah. Here's another real quick story on. Let me put this. You can see that this is the only one we have that's unfinished. It's solid brass, as you can see. And my heritage, I'm a Canadian from Nova Scotia, and both my father and grandfather are in the shipbuilding industry, and so brass is a really important legacy material for me, because I just grew up around that. And this just gets back to Steve. Steve knows that in my story, and this is the only unfinished brass one that we have
in the center set model.
Center set, right? And so he was kind enough to send it to me, gift it to me. I'm not going to install it. I just like having it to look at. But the point is, here's another connection between what's important to me and how Steve responded to that. So I put that in that category of, I feel that he cares about me, because he knows what's important to me, and this takes me back to my shipbuilding heritage also. And here I have it on my desk that I just reflect on frequently.
So let me tie Dave back to dogs again, Zach. Last year we had a launch party for a small Kickstarter launch we did. And I had the Mayor Linda, come in to kick that off here at the facility. And Dave flew in from Minnesota to be a part of that launch party. And he stayed at our house. And Rose, our German Shepherd, the long-haired one that we rescued from people in Oregon, she actually had an accident upstairs. And there's Dave up there showing my wife, Becky, different ways of getting that up without having too much fuss and trouble with cleaners. But we had a great time together and got to know each other even more at a personal level, spend more time together like that.
Yeah.
It's the things that happen. I don't know what the quote is, but it's the things that happen basically off screen that matter, right? It's not the things like, there's so many things now that are so perfect, right? Or there's a filter that goes on to make it look like this life is perfect or this thing is perfect. It's okay. Well, what does that look like when the cameras are off, if you will? And so I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I think it's great. So something that I picked up on is that when you went to Minnesota, you stayed at the JW Marriott. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, the JW Marriott. And you didn't just stay there. You use that as a business opportunity. Mm-hmm. And you use that opportunity to meet the hotel manager that you're going to ultimately sell to them and show them the product and stuff like that. I think a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of salespeople would just go and stay at the place and call it a day. And so you really do, it appears, believe in the product. When did you get so passionate about the sales aspect of the product? When did you get, or how did you kind of learn how to become such a the greatest showman, if you will, on something? Because I think it is something that I do admire, and that a lot of people do. I don't know what the word is, Tim, but they struggle with it, where it's like, I want this thing to be there and I think it should be great, but like you really are proactive in getting it. And so like, where did you learn kind of the salesman mindset, if you will?
It's funny you asked that, because it just flashes me back to when I worked the Sealift program at Newport News Shipbuilding. Mike Wynn was the manager in engineering, and he made a comment to the supervisor I was working for at the time in engineering that Steve could sell ice to Eskimos, you know. I don't know, maybe it's natural, but when I go all in on something, I go all in, you know, to try to make it happen. And some things I've done in that regard are, I love podcasts, man. I learned so much. I take the dogs for a walk. I got my earbuds in. I'm listening to podcasts. I make a trip. You know, a lot of people dread driving places. I love it. You know why? I listen to audiobooks from audible.com and podcasts, and it's an amazing learning opportunity. Zig Ziglar would say, he called it Automobile University. And the irony of all that is my son in Florida right now, Dallas, he laughs because he's taking a class, and the book he's got right now is called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he said, Dad, I can remember when I was little and we're riding in the car and you're playing these tapes. And I'm like, Dad, can't we just listen to music like normal people? And I'm playing these audiobooks with Zig Ziglar and all this other stuff, you know. And he goes, now that stuff flashes back at me and I know it, you know, and it's cool. And he's listening to the podcast now himself and really getting a lot out of it, you know. And it's so funny that he says that. He just told me that this week.
You know, that it is powerful, though, and I think a lot of people don't capitalize on the audio opportunities like that. I know that Tim runs all the time. I attempt to run all the time now, and you know, something I think
2 miles a day, is it?
Tim has run like at least 2 miles a day for 2,100 days or something.
I read that in your email, Zach, your anomaly email. That's impressive.
It's very.
I guess I average between 6 and 7 a day. This morning I knocked out 7.
Wow,
Nice.
There's actually. So what, Tim?
What's your go-to podcast, Steve?
You mean what's my favorite right now?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a single. It's because, you know, I focus on a topic, right? So, like, for example, when I wanted to learn about ClickFunnels, man, I'm listening to any podcast that's high rated on ClickFunnels. You know, when I want to learn about StoryBrand with Donner Miller, I get his podcast. What a great podcast that is. So I just have a lot of them that I listen to.
I love that themed wise. It's pretty cool. And I don't know if I finished this, but we listen to we work out and then we listen to something. So or you're driving and you do and you can do that. And so I think a lot of people will sit there and just listen to Taylor Swift. That's great. I love a good Tay-Tay song every once in a while. But also, like, you know, time is money, right? And if I have an opportunity and I'm going on a 17-minute whatever majig, that's an opportunity to listen to 17 to 34 minutes of content, depending on how fast I listen to it. And I think that's extremely valuable. And I think more people should get into that more. And there's a ton of opportunities to even listen to stuff that's free, right? You have your library card where you can get free audiobooks, do like Hoopla or Overdrive. And I love it. David, are you into audio at all? Are you?
Yeah, I am. And I follow the same, mostly the entrepreneurial ones, because I think the story so interesting. And again, I don't have a single favorite. I just kind of do that. But I think you pick on a really significant point, Zach, that, you know, the learning really never stops. Yeah. And one thing that you've already picked up about Steve is that, you know, it's not just, okay, well, that was interesting. You know, okay, that makes sense, whatever. Like you would normally just kind of absorb the material or the content that's coming at you. I've seen Steve numerous times, dozens, if not hundreds of times. He'll hear something and it'll trigger some action. He'll bridge it to the next person or somebody he heard in that, or the person that has something to do with something else. So it's kind of like this curiosity, as I put it in that bucket, I think. Curiosity and the desire to learn, you know, all the time.
It's funny, Zach, the one I just told Dave this week, I'm listening to Russell Brunson on ClickFunnels, and he's talking about his book, .com Secrets. I think I got it off Audible. And he talks.
Is that his new book or is that his original?
That's one of his 3. He's got, you know, Traffic Secrets, .com Secrets, and I forget the other one, but it's a trilogy. And so as I'm listening to it, walking the dogs, you know, he mentions the concept of pre-framing. You know what that is?
Probably, if you told me.
He talked about that in the context of a professor that was a substitute professor for a day. And they sent out to the class, there's like 70 students, and they sent out a bio of the professor. And there was only one thing that was different. You know, in one, it talked about how great he was and fun and all energetic and all that. And the other, it was more, he's got this great bio, but he's not a warm person. He's not very personable or anything like that. And they sent 35 of each to the class, right? And it's so ironic because, that's before the class happened. When the course evaluations came back, all the people that had a warm positive in the email, in the bio, all wrote great things about him. And all the ones that said he was cold and impersonable all wrote negative things about him. And it was only because they had pre-framed the scenario. So I tell Dave, I said, we're possibly looking for an introduction to Moen and stuff like that and others. And I'm like, okay, we need a warm introduction. And I never thought about it in the context of calling it pre-framing, but there's value in having those warm introductions, which now I'll call pre-framing, I guess. But it's an important thing that we picked up on.
Well, even if the introduction, to even go deeper into this, even if the introduction, or even if you are just reaching out to someone cold and you get that person on an off day, the context isn't there because they're reading something, right? Yeah. It's hard to receive that. Mm-hmm. That alone could be the reason why something doesn't happen. But if you get a warm introduction to someone from someone that mutually is engaged between the two people, that context is kind of thrown away because they're like, okay, cool, I'll listen to this guy a little bit differently. Yeah. And it's so powerful. Cold calls are fine. Cold emails, you have to do it to get in front of people sometimes, right? Just say, hey, it works. But when someone else that they mutually enjoy, it helps a ton, right? Yeah. I mean, it helps a ton. And I know Tim's a big believer in that kind of mindset. That's how he and I met originally 8 years. Yeah.
Well, it is so true, Zach, what you're saying. And I think most people don't really realize how important that is. As an example, a partner of mine is working with a senior housing executive. He's transitioning out of the business. And he made a warm introduction for me to the CEO of this regional, fairly large senior living company. And I'm going to get a chance to show him the product and talk to him about, what it is, why I'm so excited about senior living because of the, enhanced hydration possibilities and better oral health. And, dentists are starting to follow us and so on. So as I go into this meeting, which was a warm introduction to a really significant player in a really significant market for us, I go in equipped with a friendly reception and listening ears around, Dave, why are you so excited about this? And what do you think is important for me to know? And it's like all of the other stuff is kind of in the background. It's like, what do you have to say? I want to hear what you have to say. And it may be relevant. I hope it is. So, that plays to the importance of this relational connection, even if it's thin. If it's better than, my inbox is filling up with all this stuff and I can't even tell which I want to even look at. And so but these warm introductions like Steve is doing and what we're looking for, and like I'm experiencing next week actually, is to have this experience that was ushered in because of a warm introduction.
Yeah. One quick thing, Zach, we don't have the ability to send our customers necessarily a warm introduction and talk with them in person. So I took a cue. There's a company that makes eyeglasses that is taken over the market. I can't remember the name of them. Dave, do you remember? There's a startup. This startup is just dominating the eyeglass market. And I actually bought a pair. I wear reading glasses. I bought a
Warby Parker?
Yes, Warby Parker. Yeah. So when I got the glasses, they had a little story on a cloth. And I'm like, oh, man, I love that, right? Mm-hmm. So now every one of our faucets comes with what we call a story cloth. And it talks about the whole thing with Italy, right? And how when I saw the fountain be created, with the Nasoni fountains of Rome, and how that spark of inspiration fired inside me. So that comes on a story cloth, and you can use it to either wipe your eyeglasses or wipe your faucet down with it. But it's it's got my signature on it and everything.
Yeah, I mean that takes that into one of the points I wanted to tack on what Dave was just talking about is when it comes to those warm introductions, one of the things that I will do is I will be proactive, and I have an intro that I have already drafted, and I will send that introduction to the person saying, hey, this is how I would like to be introduced, because you know best how you want to be introduced. If you leave it up to chance to that other person, they're going to butcher it and they're not going to get it right. So I just have a 3 or 4 sentence intro that I give to people and say, hey, this is how I would like to be introduced, so that you can lay the groundwork. And hit the ground running.
Yeah, Tim, that's a brilliant point also. I mean, when my partner, before he reached out to his relationship, he said, Dave, so, you know, why would he care? Well, you know, give me something that would allow me to be authentic about this introduction. And not just, I'm just calling a favor. It's like, oh, I didn't realize, you know, better hydration or oral health or making a senior's life better or providing something that a child can give his aging parent, you know, would make his life better. I mean, it's just kind of these things that, like you say, if you can kind of craft or design or architect a message, that's the introduction. It doesn't then makes it a
right.
market.
And now with the cleaning cloth with the story on it, I mean, that's essentially the introduction that when people read that, they're going to tell everybody, hey, I got this fountain that I use, and this is where it stems from.
Yeah, fascinating story. Look at this. Fascinating story.
Yeah.
And it's not just a piece of paper, which they would probably throw away. It's a you know, it's a little value add where it's something that, whether it's their glasses, their sunglasses, the actual faucet, something else that's that they can.
There's a message there, I think, that other entrepreneurs should hear, and that's look at what others are doing and take those ideas, right, and apply them where you can to what you're doing. If I had bought the glasses, I would have never thought of that, right? So just paying attention, you know, at the other aspects of what's happening around you and see how that might work for you as well.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly powerful. And something that I do that kind of in the introduction world is a lot of people, the two of you probably know this, Dave, you probably never seen this, is I ask a question often with people when I meet someone for the first time. It's like, what are you watching on Netflix? It has nothing to do with the business, but it's something that so many people do that I can connect with them. And so it might be something about sports. You know, they might be wearing a jersey that says New York Giants or something like that, Washington Redskins. I don't think we're going to talk about that team, the Skull team, because they're not doing too well. But my point is that if you can find something, and the whole thing with Way One, what are you watching on Netflix, is find something that's unique that someone else does and talk to them about that. They'll want to talk more about that instead of you just being like, hey, yeah, I want you to buy my thing.
Yeah. So Zach, one of the things I do for fun, right, is I'm a Cowboy fan, and they really suck this year. And I have a mask, right, that I wear.
Hold on. Period. It's not just a this year thing.
All right. So I wear this mask, and I'm going through the grocery store or Costco or whatever, and somebody's coming on with a Steelers jersey, a Redskin jersey, whatever, you know. And I'll say, I wore this mask for Halloween, right, to scare you guys. So I don't know this person, and they start laughing. We have a conversation, and it's kind of like I just made a new friend, right? You know, that I never would have talked to otherwise. And I just do it for fun, man, because life is tough enough, right? Yeah. So let's make people happy and have fun with it.
So is Halloween is that a big time of your life? Zach and I were able to see some of your pumpkin carving skills.
Well, you know, we don't have little kids at the house. I don't have any grandkids, nothing like that. But my wife's company did have a pumpkin carving contest because she does have employees that do have kids or grandkids. And so, yeah, I wanted to participate in it. And when I do, I don't like to lose. So I tried to put something together that's pretty cool last night. And I sent you guys a video of that. I think it turned out pretty cool.
That goes for food as well.
Oh, we do take the pumpkin seeds and bake them, and with a little bit of light salt. They're great. A lot of zinc for you, right?
There you go. What's something we haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
Dave, what do you think?
Well, I think kind of the imagination to see what this could be, that generates additional enthusiasm and has impact on people's lives for from this day forward. One of the things that we're evaluating right now in high gear is the market in India. We have, by virtue of warm introductions, we have some friends over there who are aware of what we're doing, and they said, you know what, India has freshwater issues in high order concern. The government's very concerned about it.
Actually, what he told you, Dave, was we talk about California having a situation.
Yeah. Well, so my friend over there says, well, Dave, here's a way to think of it. You guys are focused on Florida and California, kind of, right? They said, well, think about the market we have over here as 30 to 40 times bigger than your California market. And it's different, and we need to learn about it. But it does, I say, for other entrepreneurs to think think very large about the product or the service or whatever, and how it will impact others, on the planet, for the planet. So in India, they get their monsoon, and they said there's been tough monsoons these last few years, and a lot of the stuff runs off. So they every year they're struggling. So we're working with folks over there to put a plan together that will involve the government of India around supporting this kind of innovation that has, health and water conservation at the same time. And they can tell in India, they can tell the hospitality industry, look, new construction or renovations are going to use this, and we can be spec'd into there.
So Dave mentioned health. I would like to share a shout out to Dr. Anna Jang at ODU at their School of Environmental Health. She actually, I'd always hypothesized that it's cleaner to drink from a water fountain than the glass that sits on the counter when they're both exposed to the aerosol effect from the toilet. You guys know what the aerosol effect is, Zach and Tim? So when you flush the toilet, bioaerosols get ejected, and they travel as far as 10 to 15 feet, and they land on all the surfaces. Mike Rowe has the world's dirtiest man. He has a great video on that. Dr. Oz has talked about it. A lot of people have talked about it in the industry. You can find those videos. But I had always hypothesized it's cleaner for the fountain feature than it is the glass, but I never had any scientific proof. So last year, Dr. Anna Jang and two of her graduate students actually took one of our faucets, and they had it in an environment at ODU in a lab, and they put the glass and the faucets together, and they exposed it to E. coli and so forth, and they took readings. And in fact, they couldn't even get any positive reading inside the fountain nozzle, and they actually had to squirt it, inject it in there to get anything. And bottom line is, their study proved it's much cleaner to drink from the fountain feature. And that study was actually published in the spring 2020 version of the Virginia Journal of Health. So that's really cool. So now it's cleaner to drink from just because of that. You add a filter, the water's cleaner. It makes your life easier and saves water while you're doing it. So one thing I want to mention, a lot of people may not realize all the use cases. I didn't myself. When I first did this, it was really only thought about, stop and tilt my head underneath the faucet to rinse after I brush. But we did the production pilot where we installed it in a number of places, and we learned of all these different uses. So my wife every night, but she wants to rinse facial cleanser, she would cup her hands and splash her face, and water gets all over the counter. It's kind of messy. Now, every night, she turns on the hot and cold handles at the same time, gets a warm, gentle fountain stream, and dips her face in it, and it just rinses away. You can do the same thing with shaving cream. It also is useful. My father was in a retirement home here in Suffolk before he passed away. We installed a faucet for him to make it easier for him to drink from. But he also, because he had knee replacement surgery, there were days he didn't want to stand in the shower. He could actually give his hair a light rinse with it. He couldn't fit his head underneath the faucet spout, but the fountain stream worked perfect for that. We've had our vet tell us that her husband had bad back, and that, she would like it because he wouldn't have to bend over or use that dirty glass anymore. There's also a builder named Ed Sadler here in Harborview. His wife ran into me in the parking lot one day and said, "Man, I could have used your faucet last week." I said, "Why is that?" She goes, "I had vertigo." So, bending over made it tougher because you get more dizzy. So we've learned that people with chronic health conditions benefit from it. And even there's things you'd never think of, like Virginia Maryland Associates, a lady named Sue Resnick works for him. And she said, "Guess what I'm doing with it today?" I said, "What?" She goes, "I can actually fill my plants, my potted plants. They won't fit underneath the faucet in the sink, but due to the fountain stream, I can fill the plants with it." You can also fill water bottles, that don't fit underneath the faucet, the fountain of the faucet. It's just so many use cases I never dreamed of. But the other thing is, we never had any real proof of what the water savings is until we calculated it recently. The flow regulator in the spout of the nozzles reduces the flow rate from a normal faucet that's 2.2 gallons a minute down to 0.26 GPM. That's an 88% savings. And then there's WaterSense, which is 1.5 gallons per minute, and we beat that as well. And in fact, we recently got an award from WaterSense, a recognition for our water saving efforts that we're doing. So, and then just yesterday, I was notified that we won the 2020 Architecture Master Prize Product Design Award. So that was pretty cool too. We're winning a lot of awards for the faucet, and just makes it that much more fun.
Yeah.
Love it. Guys, it's been a total wonderful experience. I was trying to think of one other word, but I couldn't. So I was like, let me just say that. It's been a lot of fun, Dave. It's been a pleasure meeting you. And
nice. Thank you.
Steve and Dave, appreciate you guys being here. And Tim, always good to see you. And until next week, we'll see you guys soon. Thanks for coming on the show, and we'll see you guys soon.
It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here.
Yeah. Bye.